The morning sun had barely climbed above the city skyline when a single sentence stopped everyone in the crowded public park. A tired single father, holding his little daughter's tiny hand, stepped back from the elegant woman who had just helped them and whispered with an embarrassed smile that people would think they were together if she stayed any longer. Instead of looking offended, the powerful CEO simply smiled with unexpected warmth and silently wondered whether that would really be such a terrible thing. In that brief moment, two lonely hearts carrying completely different burdens unknowingly stood at the edge of a life-changing journey that neither of them had ever imagined. Before we begin this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another heart-touching story. Your support truly means the world to us. Every weekday morning, Rowan Hale followed the same routine. He woke before sunrise, prepared breakfast, packed a tiny lunch decorated with cheerful drawings, braided his 6-year-old daughter Myra's hair after watching dozens of online tutorials, and hurried toward the neighborhood daycare before catching 2 different buses to the construction company where he worked as a maintenance technician. Since losing his wife to a sudden illness 3 years earlier, every single responsibility had fallen onto his shoulders. There were no grandparents nearby, no brothers or sisters to help, and no luxury of taking a day off whenever life became difficult. He had learned to smile while carrying exhaustion that reached far deeper than anyone could see. Across the city, Selene Ashford lived a completely different life. As the chief executive officer of one of the country's fastest-growing technology companies, she spent her mornings surrounded by meetings, investors, cameras, and expectations. Newspapers admired her achievements. Business magazines praised her discipline. Employees respected her leadership. Yet every evening she returned to an enormous apartment that echoed with silence. Her parents had passed away years earlier, friendships had slowly disappeared beneath endless work schedules, and every relationship she had attempted had collapsed beneath the weight of ambition. Success had brought recognition but not companionship. That bright spring morning, fate quietly rearranged both of their schedules. Rowan's old bicycle, which he used to shorten the walk between the daycare and the bus station, suddenly broke apart near the city park. The front wheel twisted awkwardly, sending him stumbling onto the sidewalk. Myra remained unharmed, but her carefully packed lunch scattered across the pavement. Fruit rolled beneath benches while sandwiches landed in the grass. Rowan immediately knelt to gather everything, apologizing to his daughter for something that wasn't even his fault. At nearly the same moment, Selene's driver slowed beside the park after noticing heavy traffic ahead. She saw the little girl trying not to cry while helping her father collect the ruined lunch. Without thinking about schedules or security, Selene stepped out of the car carrying a clean picnic basket that had been prepared for an executive meeting. She quietly handed it to Rowan, suggesting that the fresh food inside might save the morning. Rowan thanked her sincerely but looked uncomfortable standing beside someone whose elegant clothes and confident posture made it obvious she belonged to another world. When nearby pedestrians began smiling knowingly in their direction, Rowan laughed nervously and politely warned her that she should probably leave because people might start thinking they were together. Selene looked directly into his tired eyes, smiled with genuine amusement, and silently wondered if that would truly be such a terrible misunderstanding. They both walked away carrying thoughts that stayed with them much longer than expected. Over the following weeks, chance continued bringing them together during bright daytime hours. Sometimes Selene deliberately walked through the same park before work instead of taking her usual route. Sometimes Rowan happened to be repairing equipment nearby. Their conversations remained brief but gradually became comfortable. They spoke about simple things at first, including the weather, favorite books, childhood memories, and Myra's endless curiosity about everything she saw. Unlike the business executives constantly trying to impress Selene, Rowan never cared about her wealth or position. To him she was simply a thoughtful woman who smiled kindly at his daughter. Myra quickly became the bridge connecting two lonely adults. She greeted Selene with innocent excitement every time they met, proudly showing school drawings, handmade bracelets, and stories about classroom adventures. Selene found herself laughing more often than she had in years. Meetings no longer felt quite as important after hearing a child describe clouds shaped like sleeping elephants or butterflies that looked like tiny pieces of sunshine. Yet not everyone appreciated the growing friendship. Rumors spread inside Selene's company after someone photographed her sitting on a park bench beside Rowan and Mira during lunch. Online gossip pages immediately began inventing stories about the mysterious man supposedly dating the famous CEO. Investors questioned whether personal relationships might distract her leadership. Members of the board quietly encouraged Selene to distance herself before public speculation affected the company's reputation. Meanwhile, Rowan faced different criticism. Co-workers joked that he had found himself a billionaire girlfriend. Some accused him of chasing money despite knowing nothing about his character. Rowan laughed off the comments during work, but each word quietly wounded his pride. He had spent years building an honest life through hard work, and the idea that others believed he wanted financial advantage deeply embarrassed him. Instead of becoming closer, Rowan slowly began avoiding the park altogether. He changed bus routes, adjusted work hours whenever possible, and convinced himself that disappearing from Selene's life would protect them both. Selene noticed immediately. For several days she waited beneath the flowering trees where they usually met, watching children play while hoping Rowan and Mira would appear. The empty bench beside her somehow felt heavier than boardroom negotiations ever had. Eventually she learned from the daycare that Mira had become unusually quiet. Concern overcame hesitation. During her lunch break, Selene visited Rowan's small apartment building carrying fresh groceries after discovering through a neighbor that he had injured his shoulder lifting heavy equipment at work. The apartment was tiny but filled with warmth. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Books sat neatly arranged beside second-hand furniture. A small calendar displayed carefully planned expenses, proving how precisely Rowan managed every dollar. There was no sign of luxury, only dignity. Seeing his injured shoulder, Selene finally understood the full weight he carried every single day. He never complained because there had never been anyone willing to listen. As sunlight poured through the apartment windows, Rowan admitted the real reason he had disappeared. He feared becoming another headline in her already complicated life. He worried that people believed he wanted something from her besides friendship. Most of all, he refused to let Mira grow attached to someone who might eventually leave once public pressure became unbearable. Selene listened quietly before gently reminding him that the opinions of strangers had never built a family, comforted a child, or healed loneliness. Kindness should never become something people apologize for. Those words remained with Rowan long after she left. Several months later, the construction company where Rowan worked announced unexpected layoffs. Despite years of loyal service, he lost his job. Bills quickly accumulated, savings disappeared, and fear returned stronger than ever before. Rowan secretly searched for work every single day while pretending everything remained normal for Mira. Without announcing her involvement, Selene arranged interviews for Rowan through community employment programs connected to her company's charitable foundation. She carefully ensured every opportunity depended entirely on his own skills rather than personal favors. Rowan eventually earned a facilities management position at a respected educational foundation after impressing interviewers with his dedication and practical experience. Only afterward did he discover that Selene had simply opened a door he still had to walk through by himself. Instead of feeling humiliated, Rowan finally understood the difference between charity and belief. She had never tried to rescue him. She had simply believed in him when circumstances made believing in himself almost impossible. Life gradually transformed. Mira flourished at school. Rowan regained confidence. Selene found reasons to leave the office before sunset instead of staying until midnight. Weekends became filled with museum visits, outdoor festivals, neighborhood markets, and peaceful walks beneath warm daytime skies. Their happiness grew naturally, never rushed, never forced. Nearly a year after their first meeting, the same city park hosted a community celebration recognizing volunteers who had improved local neighborhoods. As families gathered beneath colorful banners and children laughed across the bright green fields, Rowan looked around at the joyful crowd before quietly standing beside Selene once again. This time he remembered the nervous sentence he had spoken months earlier. He smiled, no longer embarrassed. If people believed they belonged together, perhaps they had finally noticed something both of them had been too afraid to admit for far too long. The applause surrounding the event seemed to fade as Mira reached out and held both of their hands at once. In that simple daytime moment, surrounded by ordinary people living ordinary lives, success no longer belonged to job titles or bank accounts. Success meant finding people who chose to stay when life became difficult. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support encourages us to keep bringing you stories that remind the world kindness still exists. Speech balloon special request: comment below with the words, "Kindness always wins," if you believe one act of compassion can completely change someone's life. As the golden afternoon sunlight bathed the park in warmth, Rowan finally realized that the greatest gift life had given him was never unexpected wealth or perfect circumstances. It was meeting someone who saw beyond his struggles and respected his strength instead of pitying his hardships. Selene also discovered that genuine love was never impressed by power, luxury, or success. It quietly appeared through shared lunches, small acts of kindness, patient understanding, and the courage to remain beside someone when walking away would have been easier. Sometimes the happiest families are not formed by perfect timing. They are built by wounded hearts that choose hope instead of fear, kindness instead of judgment, and love instead of loneliness. And perhaps that is why the simplest question ever asked between two strangers became the beginning of the most beautiful answer either of them would ever receive.